Hello, I just wanted to let you know you can find the full version of this video, over an hour in length, on our Patreon. So if you want to hear our additional notes, additional rants, and bloopers, consider becoming a patron. Link in the description below. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
So, we are on to Season 3, Episode 6, The Academy. In the intervening episode, if you recall, Padme went to Mandalore, and they found out that the kids' tea was being poisoned, and then they found the warehouse where it was happening, and then Satine had all the evidence burned, and then they're like, we gotta figure out who's doing this. And I forget exactly how that episode ends, like if Padme's like, oh, you should get a Jedi, and Satine's just like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. But what we wrote for the Academy in the argument against Ahsoka is that Ahsoka is given a mission to teach a class of future leaders on Mandalore. She whines to Anakin that she's overqualified for this, again showing a complete lack of appreciation or respect for people with essential but mundane jobs. For the rest of the episode, she's suddenly super mature compared to the other kids her age, who all act exactly as she does in almost every other episode. The writers prop Ahsoka up, having the council claim that only a young Padawan like Ahsoka can teach about the evils of corruption, when Ahsoka is shown to gladly take part in corrupt behavior on numerous occasions. Anakin also claims that Ahsoka has the council's full confidence, despite the fact that when we last saw her with a member of the council, he showed very little confidence in her, and also just 2 episodes prior to this one, Ahsoka was sneaking around behind the council's back. When Ahsoka's students start trying to follow her advice and root out corruption, her reaction is to disbelieve them, then belittle them, then tell them to be cautious. She offers no support. Later, she simply shows up and takes charge, the writers painting her as a hero. And at the end of the episode, Satine thanks Ahsoka while ignoring the contribution of her students, including Satine's own nephew, who approached her long before Ahsoka even knew that anything was going on. Those who enforce the law must obey the law, and I completely agree.
Same.
But, either way, we've picked out some quotes. We decided on one that was a little more actually useful to people, young or old. Before you marry a person, you should first make them use a computer with slow internet to see who they really are. There you go. Boys and girls, take note.
Mandalore is a deeply corrupt world. Future leaders at the Royal Academy of Government must learn the evils of corruption. Yoda feels that only a young Padawan like you can get through to them.
The entire setup is just like, let's just ignore the real problem here and write about this other thing so we can make Ahsoka look cool.
If I had it my way, I wouldn't have Ahsoka in this episode. What if we changed it so that they actually sent a Jedi Knight or a Jedi Master or whoever, and Ahsoka just came along to observe? So instead of teaching the students, she'll be learning along with them.
Maybe instead of having the council send her to teach, they're sending, I probably wouldn't do Anakin, to be honest.
Me neither.
But it's Ahsoka and someone else in the cockpit there. And that person, is being sent to teach, and Ahsoka is, sure, being brought along to learn, but then when they get there, because they get rid of Anakin anyways, and it's just so stupid that he chauffeured her all the way here, and then he's like, oh, sorry, no, I'm not staying. I gotta go back to the front line, got a war going on. So what if...
It's so stupid to bring in a Jedi at all. Like, for a teaching position. That's not their job. Especially with a war going on.
There's so much wrong with the setup of this episode. Ideally, this episode wouldn't happen at all because, it doesn't make sense for them to bring in a Jedi, period, because they're a neutral planet that has been very clear that they don't really like Jedi or the Republic or whatever. So A, they're contradicting that, and then B, it's like, A Jedi isn't a school teacher. They do their own teaching, but like they're teaching the Jedi way. They're not teaching, like, I don't know, I guess it would fit in somewhere. Maybe if they had it that it was just for a day or like a week, maybe. Right, so they make it clear that it's just you're gonna do a few lessons with them and then you're gonna go back, but then I'd have it that they get a call or something saying that something happened nearby and they need a Jedi there ASAP, and so then the Jedi Master is called away and Ahsoka is left, and she's like, I don't really feel qualified to teach this, and they're like, no, you can do it, I'll be right back. But then they obviously don't come back right away. I feel like the best we can do within the constraints of what we've set out before is that, we kind of have to stick as close as possible to the plot that they have. I think the best thing to do would, have it be that a Jedi Master is coming, Ahsoka's just coming to shadow him or help out or whatever. Because, like, the last time Obi-Wan was here, and even when, Padme was here, when they were there on their own, something always bad happened. Every time one of the main group goes to Mandalore by themselves, something bad happens. So then maybe they're just like, maybe if we just, like, go together, safety in numbers. I don't know. But yeah. And then that Jedi Master gets called away, and that's why Ahsoka's on her own. But maybe, she's just kind of following his lesson plan, if you will.
I'd either have it be Obi-Wan or Luminara.
It'd be fun to see Luminara again. And then this conversation would just be, Luminara kind of saying what they're going for. Maybe throw a line in there about her saying, and maybe you'll even get to teach one of the lessons, and Ahsoka's just like, me? And she's like, we've gone over the information that I'm going to be presenting to them, so you know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know, just something to kind of establish that Ahsoka and Luminara have kind of discussed this, and so Ahsoka's kind of going as a teacher's assistant, but she knows the material that is going to be taught.
What do the Jedi know of our ways? Do we really want them meddling with our children's education?
Very good question.
I am grateful that the Jedi Council could spare the two of you to help instruct our leaders and peacekeepers of tomorrow.
What if we kept Luminara for a little bit, at least like through this first class?
Yeah, that's what I would do. So just have this scene be them introducing the students to Luminara and Ahsoka.
Master Obi-Wan caused trouble? That's a first.
Just give me the lightsaber.
Yeah, and then this is completely contradicting what they established in Lightsaber Lost about, like, my lightsaber's your life, you can never let it out of your sight, and my master would kill me if I didn't have my lightsaber with me. Yeah, what would we do here? Would Luminara and Ahsoka just give their lightsabers, say, to the clones? Because I guess the clones wouldn't be coming in, because, there's a clone in the background here. But they could just, like, leave it on their ship, I guess. I wouldn't have clones accompany them if they were both planning to stay. So then, I guess they would just leave them on their ship.
The droid pilot or, like, whoever else was on board their ship. Because of Lightsaber Lost, I would have Ahsoka be a little reluctant to give up her lightsaber. So, like, she doesn't say anything, but you just see her kind of hesitate before she hands it over.
That would work quite well. Because in Sphere of Influence, we have it that she's like, I don't really need my lightsaber. So you could have a moment here, since this technically comes before, which is why we should have done this in chronological order. But you could have a moment of hesitation, perhaps, and then Luminara is like, our strength is not only in our weapons. Have a teaching moment with Luminara where she reminds Ahsoka that there is more power in the Force than there is in a weapon. And so then, Ahsoka gives her lightsaber to Luminara. Luminara passes them off to, let's say, their pilot droid that's standing nearby, and then pilot droid leaves. But obviously, I think we want to change the line Ahsoka says about, like, Obi-Wan caused trouble? That's a first. Or would we want to keep that, but, like, maybe just change her tone a bit? Or, like, is that fine as it is? Because, again, when you kind of fix her character, lines like that I feel aren't as bad. Though I'd maybe remove the "that's a first" and just have it kind of be like, oh, he caused trouble? And then Luminar is just like, no, don't tell us the story. We don't need to know.
Corruption is what happens when someone in power puts their own personal gain before the interests of the people they represent.
If you don't trust your leaders, isn't that treason?
It's every citizen's duty to challenge their leaders, to keep them honest.
Obviously, we want Luminara to be the one teaching here, and we want to make the dialogue less stupid.
But I don't even know where to begin. And the other, like, just the tone of her voice. Like, it literally is just so condescending. So I'd want Luminara's tone not to be like what Ahsoka's got going on here. Like, actually a teaching tone rather than a, well, this is so obvious, you guys.
I'd have it be more interactive, like Luminara actually kind of pushes the students to come to their own conclusions.
But obviously she's making sure they're the right conclusions. I would maybe give Ahsoka a line or two. One of the students asks a question and Luminara turns to, well, Ahsoka, what do you say, right? And then Ahsoka, again, as we'd already established that she kind of knows the material, so then she'd respond with the correct answer. And then, yeah, Luminara is not teaching in the traditional sense, but she is teaching. Because, like, part of what makes fantasy stories like Star Wars interesting is the different ways that they do stuff that we do here in real life. Right? So they literally have this classroom set up exactly like a regular classroom. All the kids in their little desks with the blackboard up front and the teacher standing up there chatting, basically monologuing. It's like, so it'd be fun to kind of have it be a different setup, right? Like maybe have the kids seated in like a semicircle instead of in chairs, and have Luminar be walking around among them and prompting discussion and deeper thought and involving Ahsoka and bringing out this information. So you're still kind of getting the same information, but in a little bit more of a roundabout way. And the kids are kind of playing off of each other.
It makes sense not if they taught what corruption is because Godoy, but focus specifically on how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think you'd start from the point rather than ending the scene with, and that's why you should root out corruption. It would start with, you need to root out corruption, and how are some ways we could do this? And then people start offering suggestions, and people are like I wouldn't mind them kind of like bringing up like, oh, but we need to trust our leaders, right? Like, otherwise isn't that treason, right? It's like, well, no, you do trust your leaders, but you also have to hold them accountable, and so then someone's like, yeah, so we expose them and get rid of them. And it's like, well, it's not always that easy. What if you run into this, right? Like, so I don't know, something like that. But yeah, actually give some good information. And yeah, you wouldn't have to make it super long. I mean, this scene goes on for basically a solid minute. You can fit quite a bunch into a solid minute. And you don't have to have a start and an end. You could just have it, you come in the middle of the discussion, and then you leave after hearing what was important in the discussion.
Assignments are prepared for tomorrow. The school's out of rations again.
What assignments would you get for that?
What a segue. We're in class. We have a hologram of her reminding us about our homework. Hey, by the way, I'm starving. Okay.
Straight to the point, I guess.
I just wonder what the point of the be sure you have your assignments ready part of it was. Like, why couldn't they just go here and there's evidence of like them wanting food, like maybe there's an empty food box or something on the table and someone reaches their hand into it and is like, oh, it's empty, and then someone else comments, we're out of rations again.
I think to kind of create a better segue, we could have them talking amongst themselves about the lesson, maybe like expounding on some stuff that they said earlier. And then, yeah, we have that scene where they like reach into an empty food box and they're like, oh, I'm starving, can we get some food?
So then, yeah, they go looking for food in a warehouse, because that's just totally normal. Guess this place doesn't have any kitchens.
Maybe we could change it so that, like, they go to a kitchen or something on the premises, and then, like, there's a staff member there or something. They're like, oh, we haven't received our next shipment from the warehouse. And then they go to the warehouse because of that.
You could do it that way. I think it'd be easier and faster if it was like the warehouse is kind of behind the building, right? Like, so they go into the kitchen, there's nothing in the kitchen, and they're kind of sneaking around, so they're not going to talk to a staff member. And then they kind of go through the kitchen back door, and then someone's like, oh, you know, they keep the food in there, right? And so then they're like, oh, well, let's go in there. Basically, we have no idea where the warehouse is in relation to where they are now.
You seem distracted today. What's going on?
We did what you said.
What I was thinking was I'd still have Luminar teaching here, but I'd have it that the kids aren't comfortable confiding in her, so they instead confide in Ahsoka.
Maybe in the last scene when they're doing the teaching, then yeah, because Luminar kind of is involving Ahsoka and Ahsoka's not really taking the teaching role, then you kind of show that the students kind of feel that she's one of them. And then you could actually have this conversation, like maybe Corky's kind of sitting in the back and Ahsoka's kind of nearby him and Luminar is teaching up front, and then yeah, Ahsoka kind of leans over and she's like, hey Corky, you don't seem to be paying attention.
So like Ahsoka kind of gets into a whisper discussion with Corky.
And I would have it, yeah, just be Corky. Maybe one kid on, like, the other side of her, him, or something. But, like, at most, you've got, like, Ahsoka and two of the kids talking, one of which is Corky.
So, yeah, I'd have Ahsoka say, like, you seem kind of distracted. And Corky's like, I think we found evidence of corruption.
I don't think I would have him spell out that they broke into a government warehouse, because then, yeah, you'd expect some sort of response to that from Ahsoka. So I think he would just kind of like vaguely explain that they went looking for food and then they stumbled upon this shady deal. And so then they got a recording of it. And she's like, oh, well, did you show it to Satine? And he's like, well, we're going to show it to the Prime Minister. So I think it would make more sense if he's kind of dodgy and she's like, hey, maybe Luminara should go with you. And he's like, no, I've known the Prime Minister all my life. And she's like, but are you sure you can trust him? And he's like, of course. And so then you kind of get this vibe from her that she's like, okay, well, maybe I should just follow along. Maybe after that is when we have that scene that Luminara kind of gets called away. Like maybe Ahsoka goes to tell her about it. Like, hey, maybe we should go with the students even, or like follow them. And Luminara is like, well, you're going to have to do that because I just got called away. But I agree. You should just kind of follow to make sure that they're safe. I would have it that Padme kind of explained the situation to the Jedi Council, and so this is when, like, either at the beginning or here, yeah, you kind of imply from the dialogue that they expected something like this, and so that's why Luminar is like, yeah, you should make sure that they're okay, because, yeah, we don't know who's behind all this, and this is part of the reason that we're here.
Yeah, I guess it would kind of make sense for her to be more wary of Almac than Satine, because she knows, or should know, that Satine is friends with Padme.
Satine was the one who asked Padme to send somebody to root out the corruption, right? So and Padme was present with Satine when they kind of found this thing, right? So there's at least something there that takes suspicion away from Satine. So they're more...
I'd have it that in the introduction scene, when she meets the students and everything, then she kind of becomes wary of Almec there. Maybe he makes it a little too clear that he doesn't want her there, her or Luminara. So maybe because of that, she's kind of like, don't know if I trust this guy.
Yeah, we could do that. That both Luminara and Ahsoka kind of pick up on this vibe that Almec doesn't want them there. Because there was that line already that he's like, oh, we don't need these people coming in and teaching, can we really trust the Jedi? So maybe have that conversation happen when they're a little bit closer and they actually kind of overhear it and kind of give each other a look, but then due to being polite and whatever, and Satine being like, hey, you're here, then you kind of just move past that really quick. But yeah, there's just that very subtle kind of like, okay, we're aware of this guy not wanting us here, so once you add this in, right, like there's a little bit of suspicion there. So watch how easily these kids are, like, he barely bumped him!
The Prime Minister set you up.
And then, yeah, the venom in her voice. I would have one of the kids say it. It looks like the Prime Minister set us up.
We need proof.
We have the recording.
You can't see who it is.
Information retrieval. I need you to ID a hologram.
That's him!
I would prefer it if they used voice recognition instead. Like, maybe when they did the recording, they did get a clip of Almec speaking, but they didn't recognize him in that moment. But then when they're like, well, let's, watch the video back again, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's his voice, and then Ahsoka can pull out something that identifies the audio, because that is way more believable than I'm just going to retrieve information that doesn't exist. Because she literally says, like, retrieve the information. It's like, what information? There's no information there. That's just black pixels, and you only got the view of his back in the recording, so how do you suddenly have the face?
Yeah.
Like, there's no information to retrieve here. You got what you got.
We know the Prime Minister is behind this. Let's go talk to him.
Let's go talk to him. Great idea, Ahsoka. That's such a great plan that she got there. It's really gonna go places. Yup.
This ending literally relies so heavily on stupidity.
Even this is so stupid because, like, she's placing the kids in danger. What if they all get captured together? Like, it's not part of any stupid plan or anything. They all just get captured.
When they get attacked by those guards, they actually get captured by the guards, so we don't have them go to Satine. Maybe Corky's like, my aunt, when she finds I'm gone, she's just gonna come after you. He's like, oh, we already got her. So then they know that Satine's been captured as well. So then, yeah, the best way to do it is they all just get captured together. It's a big capture party. And then you have Almec's guards look really powerful. Even with Ahsoka's help, the kids get taken out really easily. They put up a decent fight, but they're outnumbered, and then Ahsoka just all by herself, it doesn't take much to wear her down.
Also, they all get their own cells instead of being crammed into one, because it's so stupid.
Maybe at best, because I think it's 2 girls and 2 boys, right? So you could have it that, they put the 2 boys in one cell and the 2 girls in another cell. Because it's not unheard of to have people share cells. I think I would do it that way, so that they're not all together, but they're not all separate. That's the kind of corner you can cut. I feel they just cut it a little too sharply. I think I would kind of leave the cadets out for a while so that we don't know what happened to them. Because we don't have to have this conversation where Ahsoka goes and chats to the kids and just lies straight to their faces, or uses her Mary Sue omniscience to plan with them. It's got to be one or the other. And then she goes and finds Satine. We don't need that. So we could have it that when they get to the cell, they start to split them up, and the kids are, who are already kind of freaked out. They're like, oh, Ahsoka. She's like, just calm down. Maybe she alludes to, like, Luminara, the Jedi will come for me or something. I guess it'd be her word against theirs if Luminara or one of the Jedi Council members came back to collect her, and then Almec made up this story about she was caught engaging in a conspiracy against me, or, helping Satine, right? Like, I don't think the Jedi would believe them, but the Jedi also wouldn't really be able to do anything about it.
It'd be stupid of him to just keep a Jedi prisoner, so he could have her killed, and then say, because he's gonna blame it all on Satine anyway, so he could say that Satine had her co-conspirators kill Ahsoka.
It is somewhat logical for Almec to take us, because I was like, well, it wouldn't make sense for him to take her prisoner, but I think, it does make sense. Maybe she makes a comment like, oh, you can't just keep me prisoner, like the Jedi will come back. And he's like, oh, but what will they come back to? Would we have Almec show up, or would we just have one of his guards kind of say that? I think it would make sense to not have Almec show up to gloat or whatever. They capture them, they bring them here, they split them up. The kids kind of freak out. She's like, don't worry, the Jedi will come, they won't stand for this. And then the guards laugh at her and are just like, you won't be around to tell them anything. So then she gets thrown in a cell separate from the kids. At the beginning of the episode, we had Luminara remind her, like, the Force is greater than any weapon. And so she's thrown into this cell. She's kind of freaked out. She doesn't know what to do. And since we're actually sticking to chronological sense, she's not confident enough to perform a mind trick at this point. But she has learned patience. So she kind of paces around in her cell for a moment, and then she takes a deep breath, she sits down, she gets into that meditative pose that's like, okay, I need to think this through. And then she recalls Luminara's words from the beginning. I would have her, use a force ability to pull or push or break the door of her cell. Then you don't necessarily have a guard right there. You could maybe have her fight one person. What if when she breaks... Because it's like, I'm picturing the same glass kind of thing. So she kind of shatters it and then uses a force push on it, and then there's this giant spray of glass. So maybe he kind of notices it starting to crack and shatter, and then he reaches for his communication device or whatever, and then she does the force push and it knocks the glass into him, into the wall, right? So then he's knocked out. He doesn't have a chance. I would want her to go straight to Satine. So how would we have it that she knows which direction to go? We could have it that Ahsoka tries to sense for her, but then it's just not working.
So what I'm thinking is, after we have Ahsoka escape from her cell, then she could start kind of sneaking back the way the guards brought her so she can get back to the students. But on the way, she overhears a guard talking to Almec, not in person, but through a communicator. And so I'd have it that Almec is already with Satine and he's torturing her, trying to get her to sign whatever it is he wants her to sign. And since they just brought Ahsoka and the students in, then he tells one of the guards to bring Corky in. So Ahsoka overhears that, and so she kind of hides and waits for him to come back with Corky, and then she follows them to where Satine is, and that's how she finds Satine.
So this would be the first time that we see the cadets again. And instead of having the 4 of them in there, I would just have the 2 girls in the one cell and then the 2 boys in the other. And then, he only takes Corky because Almec only asks for Corky because Almec only needs Corky.
So when the guards go to get Corky, I'd have the other kid in the cell with Corky. I'd have them both kind of put up a fight, but he gets taken anyway. And then, Ahsoka follows the guard to where Satine is being held. And then I'd have only one other guard there so that it's more manageable. And she's got the element of surprise again. So she uses the force, whatever, takes out the guards, Corky helps, she frees him from his restraints. They get Almec and they force him to take the shock collar off Satine, and then they put it on him, and then they use him kind of as a shield to help them get out of the facility. Of course, they free the other students along the way. Maybe they could get their hands on a communicator or something, and they could call whoever was still loyal to Satine, or maybe they could call the Jedi.
I would say Satine's like, well, not all of my personal guards were killed in the attack against me. Actually, because we never showed that. We never showed them going to her apartment, so then she could just be like, well, I can get in contact with my personal guards. And then I don't know if you'd really have to show that her personal guards come and escort them out. And I think at that point it's pretty self-explanatory, because we don't know how many people are under Almec's command. wouldn't be too far out of reason, I think, for if her personal guards showed up at the prison, that they'd be able to just go in and get her out. Yeah, maybe they would run into a bit of a resistance, but I don't think we really have to show that. So once she gets in contact with the guards, then you could kind of skip forward. Probably, yeah, to this. With Luminara returning, because Olmec has a lot of power and he undermined her to an extent, but I don't get the impression that the guys who are loyal to him are particularly numerous. So I think Satine's guards still outnumber his. I mean, at the very least, yeah, you could just imply that.
I think as a thank you, I'd have Satine, just to keep her a little more consistent to how she was with Obi-Wan, I'd have her say, well, I don't approve of your methods. I have to thank you for everything you've done here. We'd changed the dialogue between Ahsoka and Corky, because we changed it so that Ahsoka is not the teacher.
Because he calls her a knight again. It was an honor to serve with a Jedi Knight.
Why do they keep calling her a Jedi Knight? She's not a Jedi Knight.
Maybe Corky doesn't completely understand how the Jedi ranks work, but still kind of annoying. Especially because she doesn't correct him. And he was present when she was first called a Padawan. I would just have him say, it was an honor to serve with the Jedi. And I would maybe have Satine kind of give this oh no kind of look, but it's exasperated but not upset. She didn't approve of Corky chipping in to some of the violence, but she doesn't say anything about it. She just kind of gives a look oh no. And then have Ahsoka maybe say, the honor was all mine. I don't know how exactly I would phrase it, but I would have Luminara kind of be like, oh, I see you've done well, Padawan. Or maybe I knew you could handle it. Then I would have, not as a throwaway line, because we've actually showed that Ahsoka utilized the teaching Luminara had given her, I would have Ahsoka maybe say thanks to your teaching.
Okay, so next episode is Assassin.
If I recall correctly, it's not as bad as the Academy. The Academy is just so bad. Okay, what are we having Ahsoka's lessons be here? Because we had that kind of lead up to Sphere of Influence where she kind of knows that she doesn't need her lightsaber to have power. So I kind of like that better, that this both actually in our version comes chronologically before Sphere of Influence, because it starts with Luminara, but then Luminara has to go, but Luminara kind of leaves with this hey, I know you can do this. So you have that moment of Ahsoka being kind of forced to go solo, and then she realizes hey, I can do this.
Well, I feel like this image here is pretty self-explanatory. So,
there you go.
Dear audience, please do everything that is indicated. Hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, comment below, and maybe consider becoming a patron, because that'd be nice. That'd be nice for us.
We would really, really appreciate the support.